About myself. Can you guys hear me? Audio good?
Good.
About myself, I am a masculinity architect, as Adam shared. You might have also seen on the screen Wealth Magnet Mentor, a business consultant. Overall, how I got to the conversation. Matter of fact, no, that's business. Let's the personal who I am. Just turned 36 Monday the 7th, lucky sevens, as I think Trey touched on. I am a husband of will be 12 years on August 8th. I am a father of two beautiful little girls, 9 and 5. Only child, and I'm a mutt. Born here in Atlanta. Spent 3 or 4 years in Atlanta. North Cali 3 or 4 years, South Cali 3 or 4 years, Dallas for about 15, my adolescence and growing up, and just came back to Atlanta 4 years ago now in February. And so what brought me to this work on the professional side was an interest for coaching and what I was passionate about, relationships, especially feminine energy. And I didn't have it articulated that way in that time. However, I started noticing a missing out in the world with the clients, the people I was helping, both men and women, the duality, the polarity, the obvious chemistry behind the scenes started to stand out for me. And the conversation for masculinity just really stood out more and more and called to me. And I can't really explain as to how I ended up on the path, but I always say for all my clients in any aspect, leadership is calling to something missing. And being that only child raised by a single mother, 80s baby, all the statistics and everything, having the absence of any male role model in the household, positive or negative, was my case. I actually was estranged from my dad, not in my life, from the age of 1 to about 10. And from 10 to 15, learned enough in the relationship that I wasn't missing out on anything. And in my development at age 33, I reached back out to him and rekindled the relationship. And we've actually come into each other's lives. He's bought gifts from my daughters at the holidays and stuff. And I actually just went over to his house over the weekend. So that relationship is healing and growing. And it's only side of that. And that's really, I have to give credit to this work. The work I do with men has caused me to shine a light on the importance of those dynamics, the paternal relationship, the masculine energy itself moves life forward as a general. It asserts. Right? So inside of that, without having that direction as a young man, having to figure life out. We all do in a way, and that's what I love. Addam spoke to, the rites of passage for both sides. My wife actually does work in the feminine, so we do counter each other in our power. But yeah, that's what brought me to the work. That's what has me passionate about it. I always was able to observe a dynamic of something, being single, young, in the game, myself on the market, sense of off balance. There's a reason I think everyone was called to it. The commonality, the common thread everyone shared, balance, balance, balance. Everybody looking. And I love a community that has a listening and understanding of the divine, masculine and feminine energy. That's really what lights me up about the conversation. You get to actually start to navigate and gain that balance, that healthy healing balance, to the shadow side, the toxic masculine that was mentioned, and toxic feminine as well. The impact on ourselves, the impact on relationships with others, business, romance, whatever. And then also how we have our dynamics with friends, children, whatever the case may be. Having it articulated and having a better understanding of it allows you to operate, with precision, bust out that blade, get sharp, right to the point, start having the life that you want. That's what drives me. And I hope that answers the question.
Oh, that's a great introduction. That was really so well articulated and good. But we want to know a little bit more deeper about who we are, who you are, to speak to us and impart to us. So we have to break the ice that we do with all our presenters on Wednesday night. We have the 3 H's that we want to ask you. So the first H that I want you to share with us is, I want you to share with us a personal horror that you faced in your life, something that brought a lot of fear in you, you faced and got through it.
Absolutely. And I got to acknowledge, man, this is a really great question, because when I saw it at first, I was slightly triggered, because I don't look at life with horror and headaches and things like that. So I'm like, well, that's going to be kind of tricky. But when I actually think about it, a moment in life where I did have wow, like just really waking up to what's so. My youngest child was born at 26 weeks, 13 weeks earlier, 2 pounds, 3 ounces. And so inside of that, to really tell you how deep and how dark and how fast that conversation got. We were in process of moving to Atlanta the year before we actually did. Had packed everything up in the storage. Had me, my oldest daughter, and my wife in a extended stay hotel, just looking to go ahead and pack out, leave the state. And my wife was pregnant at the time. And so she goes in for a normal hospital checkup the day before we're about to literally move, and get the call from the doctor's office she's not going to be able to go. They're actually going to keep her on bed rest for the rest of the pregnancy. So now I go and handle the move the next day by myself, get back to the hospital and check in. And as soon as I get there, everything's good. Drop off my daughter, go get some food, come back. Things have advanced. The nurse walks in like right after we eat that things are not getting any better. It's progressing negatively, and the baby has to come out now. So literally it was, you have time to call somebody to get your oldest daughter. She's going in to operate. And the horror part is the flashing reality of, you know, I could go into the end of this day, you know, not having my wife, not having my 2 daughters, like life is at stake. So that is definitely the just no time to be with the chaos, really. Like within 30 minutes, we're in the operating room. I'm holding my wife's hand, and, you know, and the whole crew, child's life is about to be here. So yeah, that was the a horror, if you will. And it was an ordeal after it. And I'll tell you why it's not even such a horror in hindsight. So for about 6 months, we were, you know, we had to go back to the ICU, ambulance rides, situations with a premature baby. Now, the blessing part of that, as stressful as it was, every single one of the professionals, the doctors, she had a full bill of health, no, you know, defects in the lungs, the eyes. Soon as she came out at 26 weeks, 2 pounds, 3 ounces, I looked over the curtain, opened her eyes, looked right at me, and screamed out a cry within seconds. Like just the love, the blessings, the favor on our family to go through. You know, it quick of a horror. The horror window was maybe only a few hours, but the ordeal overall, what we had to take to go through that, having a new baby and everything. And my oldest daughter was full term, no problems whatsoever, so it was a complete contrast. And hence, I have no other children. That was my horror experience.
That sounds like a horror and a highlight.
There you go. Yeah, extra credit. I like it. I'll go with that.
was that one of your highlights of your life?
That
you want to share another?
That was one, but I will say a highlight I have for myself and my wife is as of this year, I shared this. So we've been married for over a decade, 2 children, and we shattered the ideal of marriage for our relationship. And I really want to let that sink in. I don't know your age, I don't know your spaces, where you are in relationships and whatnot. But for me, for us, outside looking in, there was a fairy tale of love, masculine, feminine dynamics, how everything's happily ever after supposed to go. You find your love, this is your partner, all that good stuff. And as already a great, powerful couple, always been big on communication, never had a fight in all of our decade. Disagreements, but never anything major. And we came to a place as you grow every year, every decade, that we are different. We are people that are going to change. That ideal of this is what marriage is for everyone no longer fit us. And so through actions and hard work and communication, we actually decided to take this last year, coming into this anniversary, we really decided, does this work for us? Not that anything was bad, nothing falling apart. I myself had some transgressions, but had managed them inside of it. And through that, we found each other. I found being in service of my queen, having a partner, and what it's like to serve no matter what shows up. My wife found trusting me, found unconditional love for each other. And inside of that, the highlight, like we've got our marriage. We found like if you've had kids out there, you might relate. After 10 years, like we found Shay and DuWayne again. My wife's name is Chanel. We found Shay and DuWayne again. I got my best friend back. We've been mom and dad for so long, Mr. and Mrs. Langham for so long, and grew apart, disconnected. And it's like all of it got a fresh air. We're texting each other, lovey-dovey, all kinds of good stuff like that. But that has definitely been a highlight. I got my marriage. I got my Bonnie and Clyde for life. You know, we ride or die. So yeah, that's my highlight.
Ah, that's just so beautiful, man. That is a beautiful highlight. And the final one that we want to know to finally get a snapshot of who you are speaking to us tonight is, what is the ongoing headache that you deal with? What is it that keeps happening in your life that reminds you that you're human?
That is good. Desire for a six-pack.
Okay. Okay.
I'm so sincere. And this is, so I grew up overweight, right? I was the fat kid. So 13 years old, I said I wanted to go to prom. And that was when I first in my life actively said, you know, let me start eating right. Let me find out about fitness. So that was a 20-year journey. But eventually, I've been in the gym, played football, all that, athletic and all that, and finally lost 100 pounds in 2 years at the age of 33. I got disciplined with fasting, keto, lifestyle, eating. Now I'm actually leaning towards plant-based diet, and I'm still going for the six-pack, but the headache is, it's not quite there. It ain't quite right. Now I'm confident and happy with myself and pleased with my body. It's more or less just a mental goal, like I want it because I want it. And it's one of those things that's just the continuous I'm human, like nobody's perfect.
Yeah. Man, we can end right there. Those 3 H's are so empowering. Well, thank you, DuWayne, for being so transparent. Thank you for sharing your story. Those 3 H's are very beautiful. So now let's get into the conversation. Let's get into this. To start with, why is this conversation not just important for you, but why is it important for everybody to understand these dynamics especially here in 2020?
It's important, especially, you know, this is the Enlightened Collective, a bunch of woke community, if you will, very in touch, right? It's important to understand that there's more than just the physical going on, right? It's so linear. You know, I talked about the marriage. There's conversations, you mentioned sexuality. There's so many layers of things in our infinite spectrum of humanity that the more boxes that you have us confined to, the more you miss out, the more optimization, the more actual synergy and unity and getting all together. We're one big ass dysfunctional family. Pardon my language. I'm sorry. I don't know the.
No, it's just, you have freedom. You have freedom.
You know, we're part of a big family, 8 billion people, and all that difference is all the, you know, you are me, I am you. Like, that's the test of life for us to work through all that difference. So balance is the important thing. And I touched on it earlier, but understanding yourself, when you get this energy of your masculine and your feminine, and it's not just I am a man, I am a woman. It has nothing to do with sex and gender. This is an energetic conversation that every single human being on earth has. So if that's a program that we're walking around in every day, that's the blind leading the blind. Like, you have no idea how you work. So, I mean, that type of owner's manual, if you will, just makes so many of human struggles that much easier, because you know how to navigate. You have better understanding and insight and power. It doesn't have to be confined, look a certain way. You can have freedom, as you said, like there is on this call.
Okay, very beautiful. So, very beautiful. And so when it comes to understanding masculine and feminine energy, what are the first few things that what are the most important things we need to know in that concept, following that thought of understanding it's about energy. It's not about external things as much as about the energy dynamics. And what is it that we need to know that can help us embody it or live it out? You know, when we spoke earlier a few weeks ago about this conversation, I used the word, how can we be more organically into our masculinity or our femininity? You said organic. You told me, you said, Adam, to say organically implies that there's some false way, right?
Yep.
And so
like, getting an understanding that it's already at play, you're just understanding how to read the pages that are happening. So we all oscillate. And if I can, actually, I want to share my screen.
Yep, you should have the option to do so.
To share a little diagram here. This is a tool that I use with clients. Is it going to work for me?
Yep, we can see it. We see a Mercedes and we see a weather.
That's my car. I'm also into cars, if I didn't mention it. All right. So you should see this diagram here, right? Y'all see that on my screen?
Yep, we can see it.
Perfect. So this tool helps you get a little bit deeper into understanding. In most cases, there's a lot of phrases going around. You may recognize them. I've even heard them mentioned on the call tonight. Alpha, beta, masculine, feminine. I love Charles, who spoke earlier, because he really had that extra depth, right? So right off the bat, most people are going to take this conversation and say, oh, you're male or you're female. And all male, all guys should be this. All female, all women should be this. And that on and off switch just leaves so much missing inside of humanity. It doesn't make sense. And when you really just start to even grasp divine, feminine, and masculine energy in all of us, now all of that on off, one or the other, doesn't make a half of a sense. So some depth I like to give to add there, what Charles was showing earlier, there's energy, you got there to the right, character type to the left. So this adds a little depth. So the character type of alpha versus beta, that's a context where, like Charles's example, he said there are some times where I lead, but from the back. So you can be beta in character. Beta character type doesn't need to be the loudest, doesn't need to have the biggest stick, doesn't need to be so assertive, out front, be heard for every opinion. Masculine energy leads, feminine energy follows. So you can see there, and it's kind of messed up. I did it here on my tablet while we were talking, but you've got the oscillating, you know, it can go from any quadrant to the other. So there are times where, just like Charles pointed out, he can be leading in his position and role, guiding the direction of things, showing up to produce when needed. And at the same time, he can sit back and let others necessarily take charge or call the shots or be out front in the spotlight. So when you get that perspective, and this works for same-sex relationship, opposite relationship, men, it does not matter, because it's not about gender or sex, but when you get that understanding. So it got too deep, and I know you're trying to skim the surface. Let's take a look at the first thing. So the masculine energy, it leads, right? For masculine expression out in the world, the will. So my will is that my children are protected, that my wife is happy, that my friends are in good spirits. That's my masculine will to assert, and I stand and set a mental, physical barrier. Masculine energy wants to provide, protect, and cherish. So I show up in the world that these are the boundaries. When you're around me, my friends are respected, my family's respected. When my family's with me, if I'm healthy, they're eating, we have a roof overhead. Those are masculine principles. Feminine energy follows. And here's why. It's not anything to do with power. Feminine energy follows because it doesn't want the pressure. Feminine energy is connected to the emotion, the feeling. What is the well-being? Masculine will expand the barriers and take over more territory, but if inside we're all sick, we're all wounded, nobody's thriving, what's the point of that? So masculine energy answers the question, who am I? Out in the world, there's the circumstances and you assert your will. Who am I in the face of this situation? So hence, single mother, single father, whoever has to go up and get it done, you step into your masculine and you drive, you move forward progress, you take initiative, take action. The feminine energy, what is life? Beyond the rigor, beyond all the structure, how does it actually work? Are people left whole and complete? Are people happy and connected? That bigger territory, if you know the villagers at the edge are getting snatched up by wolves every night, it's the feminine energy that stays connected to know that. So it's the balance that creates an ecosystem between. So understanding where you're driving in one, and naturally you are going to have a primary driver, whether that be in your attitude or how you take things on. If you're dealing with your children, it does help to be in your feminine, because of course, before they have that threshold out into the world, all children, boys and girls, are going to reside in the feminine. What is life? I'm happy, I'm sad, I have a tantrum, I can't control my emotions. They're not mature yet. And that kind of touches on the earlier points, mature masculine energy and mature feminine to the same. And to flip it over to say a bit more to the other side, the character type, the alpha and beta, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. An alpha individual wants to be heard, wants to be at the front of the pack, wants the attention, has to have the last word. A beta character doesn't need all that. Can ride with the pack, can go with the flow. It's not such a big deal. And again, these aren't defining, because at any time you can oscillate, you can change based on the circumstance. A woman can be beta, like my partner. I'm alpha and masculine. My wife is beta and feminine. Should something happen and I'm taken out of the equation, if she has to step up and take care of her family, there's certain pragmatic, logical tasks she's now going to step into naturally that'll have her drive in her masculine. And she would have to balance how she does that. It happens now even. If she works part-time when finances are tighter, she just wants some extra money. She took on decorating the house this week. And in that masculine task, she didn't have the extra feminine energy to be pouring into everyone, to be everyone's everything like feminine or mothering, nurturing energy tends to be. So having understanding of that, I can be, and this is the relationship tip, I can be there and be with her inside of that. Like, hey, you haven't had that soft space available. We haven't been able to connect. I see you're maturing in your masculine. You're taking on these tasks. You're doing a great job with this project, and I know you want to get it done. And these things over here are also out of balance. We aren't connecting like we normally do, so on and so forth. It's not that it fixes anything, but that understanding allows me to have generosity, allows me to have patience, allows her to have understanding, to develop herself. And that kind of synergy is what can come up in your romantic relationships, your work relationships, whatever the case may be. I don't recall what the question was. We went kind of deep on that one, but you said what you got to know first, so I just went with it. You're on mute, by the way.
That was great, Coach DuWayne. That was great. That was perfect. I really appreciated hearing that, and I'm sure we did too. I want to let you all know to go ahead and send your questions in to the chat as they come up. Don't hold back your questions, whatever they may be. Go ahead and send them into the chat group, and Trey Jackson is going to filter those, and we're going to answer those at the end of this conversation. We're talking about you were a beautiful last-minute chart that you drew up. You are a true architect. That breakdown of beta and alpha, feminine, masculine energies. You asked us a question, though, that no one really got to address about mature masculinity or mature femininity. Even though you said there's no such thing as inorganic masculinity, I guess there could be something as immature masculinity or immature femininity. What does that look like, and how does that affect the ease and the flow when you're oscillating between beta or alpha?
Perfect. So the maturity conversation is a way for us to quantify, if you will. There's balance. You know, you hear about toxic, you hear about the shadow, you know when it's out of balance. I think there's also, this adds depth to development, developing your masculine energy, developing your feminine energy. So immature masculine energy is a knee-jerk reaction. I'm gonna drop something here that's been a heavy conversation out there. So George Floyd happens. Now, in hindsight, knowing that a man's about to lose his life, the knee-jerk reaction for me being there, if I'm 5 feet away or if I'm in range to be filming, is to go and tackle that man, free that man, save a life, right? That's my knee-jerk, who I am, I'm a man, he's a man, that's not right, do something, go. That's raw, immature masculine energy. The mature aspect is, what's the hindsight of that? Now my 2 daughters and wife at home do not get to see me. I might not make it home ever again. I might be in jail that night. There are mature foresight conversations, the village, the tribe, with masculine energy leading, providing, protecting, and cherishing. It cannot run and gun. Someone spoke to relationships, having immature masculine show up. Being ready to step into that leader, it's a serious thing. That's why my program, the Modern Man's Rite of Passage, you're part of it, you know very well. One of our first conversations is the boy must die. There's an understanding that the ways of a boy or immature masculine energy pop off, act, and don't think about the consequences, things like that, being a tyrant. Those ways don't serve the village, the tribe. They don't serve you yourself. Like I said, it could have me end up in jail. There has to be maturity to that. I like cars. I have a fast car. If I'm immature out there, that's why the insurance goes down, because 10 years ago, I probably would have wrapped to South Pole with 500 horsepower. Now I'm a little bit reserved, understand the safety between in and out of traffic. So there's that context to it, actually developing maturity beside it, inside of feminine. So the same regard, you may say toxic feminine, what would that look like? An over nurturing, 8th place ribbon. Everyone gets acknowledgement just for showing up. If everyone's special, nobody's special. In the context of enabling, when there are diseases, addictions, relationships where people are causing pain, if as a person, as a whole, we don't have the balance to value self, that feminine energy will keep pouring and nurturing and giving of your money, your resources, your energy, everything, and take on that stress, take on whatever else comes out from that relationship with no actual consideration for, you got to put your oxygen mask on first. So that's the context where I say development. There are lessons and experiences that all of us have to go through to have understanding, to mature our masculine, to actually sit with that energy. And that's why you got to understand it first. Because how can you mature something that you don't have distinguished if you're just reacting to the situation? So I hope that that gets to your question. Let me know if anything unclear, or if anybody has any questions. I think I saw some things pop up in the chat.
Yeah, we got a question from Khalid. He said, how do we bring our divine masculine and feminine as close to equilibrium as possible?
Perfect. So the first thing being distinguishing, getting present to your masculine and feminine. Where are you driving in each? And so I mentioned for myself, I am alpha masculine, very driven. And there are times where my life can occur like a to-do list. It's the day after my birthday. I'm celebrating, doing the things that I want. When I wake up in the day from sleeping in and not doing my normal business stuff and setting up the day, I've got a meeting in an hour. My alarms are going off. Oh, wait, let me structure out my day. And it can come to, well, before I get to relax, I've got these things to do. The balance part is I'm not a fucking robot. I'm not a machine. That's not a very happy life. I may have, all the things that I want. I may be enjoying myself. The work I do, I'm very passionate about, and being present to the conversation. Actually, before this call even, I had so much going on today after I worked out, got cleaned up. I just took an hour of quiet. Put my meditations on, got my foam roller out. I was stretching, cool, calm, relaxing, just being at peace. And that's where, so my experience in this, you talked about bringing to equilibrium. I've spent the last few years since I've discovered the masculine and feminine in resting, embracing my feminine, learning to just be with my kids, to not have a task, to just float with it, to take naps, to not necessarily have to be so rigid. When it comes to balance, that is going to be on that individual level. So it is going to be something that you'll have to find for yourself. So that's my experience of finding balance, knowing that, okay, I'm identified alpha, masculine. What brings in some feminine to that? What relaxes it over? When can I just be at ease? When COVID happened, I can't change the circumstances. Who am I? Masculine says, go do some push-ups outside. The gym's closed, figure it out, make it happen. I'm going to get this in. Feminine, if it's a zombie apocalypse, what does it matter how many crunches you had? How does it matter how many days you fasted? Enjoy your life. Just be with it right now. Hop on a bike, have some fun, and figure it all out later. So there's that aspect of then exploring, okay, what feels balanced for me? What works for me? And I'll open it up as well. If you've got a specific example, something you may be dealing with, feel free to chime in and, take advantage of the opportunity, stepping into the coach's corner. Let's see if I can get you a breakthrough.
Did that answer Khalid? We have one more question. Okay. Well, our next question is from Manifested Charles. He says, what's your suggestion to invoke mature energy in the face of immaturity, toxicity, and egoism?
I like that. It's interesting. So I'm going to give my take from both sides, right? And something I invite everybody on the Zoom here to be present to is a space of mastery. I'm a student, just like you. I'm passionate about it. I chose to dive more into it, soak up, to stand in these conversations, like Addam said, 1.5 years, just talking about it. So I theorize standing in the distinction of what I know about it. So I'll take this on from the masculine aspect. Masculine energy asserts will of who am I? So in the face of immaturity, it depends on what you're speaking to. I think there's a phrase, if you see the village idiot, never argue with the village idiot out in public, nobody can tell the difference. If someone's bringing immaturity, if someone's bringing energy that is beneath you, not mature, literally in the world of children, immature, operate in a space, adults, big kid table. You don't intertwine with it. So I would want to invite you to just be grounded. So masculine is about the grounding, no matter the circumstances, no matter the whirlwinds, whatever's going on around you, being grounded in who am I? Nelson Mandela, 27 years in prison, came out to run the country. Who am I? Masculine energy. That's at its core. It's some challenging shit to really be with. From the feminine aspect, dealing with immaturity, feminine is the nurturing, the connection, the understanding. What comes to mind with that, and by all means, it's probably a better question for my wife, I would say the consideration, understanding, and generosity for those. Masculine has the grounding of, this is the example. I'm going to be the better man. I'm going to take the higher road. Role model for you to emulate. Masculine leads. I'm not going to go to that level. Feminine energy follows, but there's a connection to the nurturing. So the understanding that they are a human being that is hurt, that is out of balance, that is misunderstood. Now, of course, mature feminine energy doesn't take that toxicity and take on damage or pain or stress or anything. And I mean, as I would imagine it, it would just be like a hug from Jesus, like just love. Like, I forgive you for wherever you are, wherever you're doing, whatever's going on. I'm not going to let it come into me. I love you as another child of the family, and go with love if there can't be compromise. And again, this is speaking in vague generalities because I don't necessarily have the details of the situation, but I hope that gives you some insight on how to navigate those waters.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Adam, you are on mute, good sir. Talking away.
DuWayne, that was a good answer. And let the questions continue to come in. DuWayne, I'm curious to know more about the dynamics interplay of playing out when you have, I don't want to call it role reversal, but when you have maybe a suppression of feminine energies, disrespect. Feminine, what I've observed on the planet is, and historically and whatever, historically and just collectively, feminine energy has been something that's been very misunderstood and very suppressed by immature masculinity.
Yes.
Right? And like anything that's been oppressed, suppressed, it reasserts itself and maybe going to another extreme. Okay? And so one of the things that I never got to really get a deep conversation with you about when I was part of the program was just how do mature masculinity help facilitate healing the suppression and oppression of the denial and oppression of feminine energy.
Wow. Okay, that's a big question, right? And I say that because even in my listening of the question as you were delivering it, when you bring that you're speaking to represent the energy, you're absolutely right. And that also speaks to, as a whole, all of society, minus the power figures or whoever you see may think or occur as in control, because they are just as out of balance, no understanding, completely lost as well. So the first, and this is what really stood out, right? Not only men and their masculinity, but women undervaluing the feminine. And I don't mean like a fault or blame. I mean, just as I'm helping clients and helping, I've had women that don't appreciate or don't value, that's what it was, don't value their beauty. Not in the context of whether or not they're ugly or pretty, but actually feel shame, like, oh, I don't want to look beautiful or be appreciated because it is weak. Their view of feminine, just feminine, was weak to them. They saw it as serving no purpose. And that's the impact, that's the symptom of a root cause that a society that is patriarchal driven. And the matriarch has been forgotten, completely misunderstood. A big connection to that, if you look at, right, the imbalances, I mean, really like shaman, witchcraft, where conversations such as this, understanding that there's more than this physical, see, that's the big thing. It's always about distinction first. You have to have distinction of what you're trying to understand before you can get anything. Feminine energy is the infinite. Feminine is the all of it. So masculine can go out and build and conquer, create empires, all this ooh wow stuff in the physical. It takes blood, sweat, and tears. It takes action. It takes grunt, brute force. It's wielding nature against nature, if you will. Feminine energy is the nature. Feminine energy sits back and has a thought, blows a kiss, and an empire comes up from the ground. Like that's when you get the scope, the compass, the context that I have it as. Everything I believe in language, I believe in energy, I believe in spirituality, law of attraction, whatever you want to call it and label it. That whole world is all in the feminine. Arts, music. Every human being, you know, Dave Chappelle did a skit on it, the different cultures and what music moves us, but every human being can hear a sound that goes to their culture background and can't help but move, you know, depending on how well they move, that's a culture thing as well. But the whole context being that feminine power, feeling connected to something, feeling something in your body. I don't care how masculine you are, when your jam comes on, whether you gotta be a thug or whether you wanna sing and dance, you feel it, you move. That's the kind of power. Masculine energy is logical, pragmatic, it's analytical, it's completely different. So I got a little lost in there and forgot the question, but I know it was speaking to the bringing back the balance of the feminine. There we go. So mature masculine, how you do that? Brilliant question. I got 2 daughters. I'm a student. I'm 10 years into this thing. So what that looks like is, I want to explain this, right? They cross nurture each other. So masculine is designed when balanced properly. I think that's really what the question was talking about, the equilibrium. In equilibrium, yin and yang, if you will, for an example, masculine energy nurtures feminine energy. In balance, feminine energy nurtures masculinity. Here's the example. Masculine energy provides, protects, and cherishes. So it takes on that lead, the aggressor, the safety, the perimeter, mental, physical, whatever the case, this is what's so. Then feminine energy is free to thrive. That's the biggest, most simple thing with relationships. Who's leading? And not that it has to be any particular party, boy or girl, man or woman, whatever, that doesn't matter, but understanding who is in the lead. If the masculine energy is leading to create, and then, you know, not having too many chefs in the kitchen, too many chiefs in the village, and then whoever takes feminine energy can follow behind, that feminine energy gets to relax. Like I said, my wife just decorated the house. Part of, like I said, in our relationship, unyielding, it's now unlocked for her to flourish, for her to just love being her, to just be with, life is amazing. I love my family. I nurture into my children. See, masculine energy, that's where is a really good one for anybody looking at relationships, right? Masculine energy owns its feminine. I want to let that sit for a second just to see if anybody gets triggered. So when I say own feminine, what I mean by that is masculine energy owns. I spoke to it earlier already. I own that my children are going to be fed, happy, educated, loved. My wife is going to be my queen above all else. She's going to be, no, I own. If I walk into the room and she's got a frown on her face, what's wrong? What's going on? I own. No, that's not okay. That's the mental masculine barrier that I've put. Knowing that I'm there to provide, I'm there to protect, I'm there to cherish her, she can just blossom and flower. So inside of that, looking for mature masculine, how it helps bring out that equilibrium and balance, when feminine can be at ease. If there's a power struggle in your relationship, if your feminine partner is unhappy, mind you, no gender or sexiness, if your feminine partner is unhappy, take on. This is your relationship. This is for both parties. It speaks to the masculine and feminine, but this is your relationship. So if you are the masculine, what was asking that question, how to bring balance for the feminine, take ownership of what are you leading? Where are you providing, protecting, and cherishing? And then you can get to the core of what's actually there. If there's something uneased, take on that you're the cause of it. Not that you're responsible, that you're response able, that ownership. I said, there's something going on. Oh, I'm gonna address that. That's the balance in play. Remember, masculine provides, protects, and cherishes. If it doesn't have that, a single man has less testosterone than a man in a relationship because he has something to provide, protect, and cherish. The feminine gets to nurture. Like I said, only child, no father around. My wife, my grandmother, feminine sources in my life. My mom was grounded in her masculine, actually, to get things done and raise me. That was the, I'm proud of you. I love you. You can do anything. That nurturing my masculine to grow up, express myself, get out in the world. So that's what, it's both sides. It's not even necessarily that masculine brings feminine to equilibrium. They're both. It's yin and yang. Mature feminine is going to nurture masculine to step up, and vice versa. That's how it all works for me.
Well, that was beautiful. I like how you brought that in at the end. I missed that. I missed that knowing this, that mature femininity also nourishes mature masculinity.
Yes.
All right. I would love to get some questions from some of the women who are in this Zoom with us tonight. Let's talk about gender and masculine and feminine energies. Okay, we're in Atlanta. Oh, it's an open secret, right? In our movement, there's a lot of gender fluidity. What you see externally is not the case internally, or vice versa. There's a lot of I call sexual inversion happening. People identify with a sex may not be their anatomical physical sex. So how does that interplay? How does that conversation, what is that conversation about look like when it comes to the LGBTQ community or sexual inversion individuals?
Absolutely.
I also want to, this question points to Charles asked about talking about hypersexuality in terms of addiction. So I don't know if that, I feel like that kind of relates. That's Charles's question.
That's good. That's good. That's both great questions. So to the LGBTQ community, that conversation, one, I'll address it from a high up, and it's going to be quick. You might even not like the answer. It makes no difference. Like the real piece in it, remember, this is a conversation about energy. So I said earlier, for me, how it occurs for me, and I shared this with you when you came into the program, it actually I get to see that perspective, and I share this with every man that comes to the fire, right? Because you represent the hundreds, the thousands of men just like you, and exactly what you're speaking to. There are communities, there is diversity. I touched on it earlier. And it all brings something to the table. Now, my eyes had to get open through your experience in participating, because it is a conversation I can't fully understand or represent without the exposure, without the experience. Your participation taught me lessons where I could see conversations where I may not be putting fuel on the fire, but I'm just as complicit to not realize that, oh, that I didn't have a listening of, that's not respecting all the parties that are here. Like, oh, let's be responsible, because even the guidelines of the group is what you're speaking to. Be aware that it affects everybody that's around. So to that, like I said, the quick and short is that it makes no difference. If it's same sex, if it's men, if it's women, whatever the case, in sexuality, all of it together has nothing to do with the masculine, feminine energies. Like I said, that whole quadrant theory, everything I've been talking in tonight has been the divine masculine and feminine energy and a character type of alpha and beta. For me, utilizing that tool and inside the work I do, I haven't come across a dynamic. And I've had a gender non-binary, I've had a range of clientele, people I serve and help everybody. Like I said, we're all just one big family to me. So inside of that, I have not come across a combination. Maybe stepping into polyamorous dynamics, multiple relationships, it might get a bit trickier. But if it's two partners, it's always about balance. So no matter which party, one is going to be, and the thing is, it's all polarity. So there's no mixing up of it. If you're in masculine energy, you're not in feminine. They're completely opposite. When I'm driving, doing my task, I don't care about emotions. When my wife is considering how the children feel, she's not worried about me telling them to do their chores and be responsible. They're polarity, they're opposites. That's why they attract. Same thing to character. You can't be loud, assertive at the front of the room and also be the low key sitting in the back taking notes on everything. It's contrary. So inside of that, once you understand yourself, then you can understand and look over at your partner. Really take on that diagram that we sat through and look, where do you find yourself? And look for seasons in life where you find yourself in different spaces. Like I said, if the situation flips and I'm not here tomorrow, it is only natural that my wife is going to have to step into masculine to fill in that gap. If you're out dating and looking for a relationship or not having success in your relationships, look at what is the type of partner that you're looking for. Are you attracting masculine partners and you're feminine? Or vice versa. Are you attracting feminine partners and you're masculine? If you're not getting what you want to show up, you have to look at what you're the clearing for. If you're running it, if you know how it needs to go, if you don't want to follow nobody's lead, well, pimping, you got to go ahead and take that masculine and then find a feminine partner that embraces and goes with the flow and have no problems. Y'all will sync up and be synergy. I touched on it earlier. My mom is alpha feminine woman. And my dad, been in my life since I was 6, is a beta masculine man. He's quiet, cool, calm, and collected, likes to talk, likes to connect. When things get out of hand, he can keep the boundaries. He can keep all right, we're not supposed to spend this money. We got goals going here. Okay, this is turning into an altercation. Somebody's raising their voice over here. We're not about to go to jail today. And they balance, and there's nothing wrong with it. I've talked to women that are grounded in a masculine, just like my mom. They like to go out. The husband actually encourages them. Where's the girl I married? Well, I need the boss chick who is out there getting this money and running these businesses. What's going on? And that's their dynamic. Married for 17 years with kids. And these are the conversations and everything. And to that, so, here's what I'll get to the core of the sex and gender clarity conversation. Even with the clients that I've had that are taking that on in life, ultimately the truest form of who you are is all that is important. When I was there with them in conversation, we would start the call, well, I go by this, but this is my name here. Well, no, what are we talking about here? Who are you? What is out there in the world as you? All right, own that shit unapologetically. This is me. This is how God made me. Anyway, I hope that speaks to and addresses that question, the world of it.
I liked it. I enjoyed it. I would love you to do another whole presentation on it, just on that itself. To kind of get to Charles' question about how is these dynamics, how do they interplay or influence hypersexuality? Is there a connection?
Absolutely. So there was a conversation to that. So I'm going to talk about sexuality and the two energies, and then I'll talk about to the hypersexuality, because there is a category of that's lacking balance, just even the hyper, because that puts it at an increase. So naturally, masculine is the sexual driver. And there's a kick to that. Masculine asserts, obviously, forward energy, it extends, it's literally the physical embodiment of sex, penetration, forward. Feminine energy receives. I've heard it best said, even if you look in the context of orgasms, typically men have one orgasm, women can have multiple, and it's actually with practice and techniques. I think somebody mentioned Tantra, it's possible for both parties. But the context is that masculine, while being the assertive or aggressive sexual driver, feminine is the full expression of it. Masculine may be sex on the mind, let's get it in. Feminine is the, wow, let's make it a party, let's bring in some friends, let's bring in some toys, let's try it with ice, let's bring in some whipped cream. Feminine expresses sexuality with the whole body. Masculine is driven, let's conquer, let's expand, let's explore, go forward, initiate. Feminine turns it upside down and up a couple notches, which is very fun. All right. And now to the second question, hypersexuality. To that, there's a conversation of sexuality, period, whether masculine or feminine. Hypersexuality relates more to a balance of self. And this is from a person, I am extremely sensual, I am extremely sexual, attracted to feminine energy at all times. And at the same time, it's when you bring hyper, it is going to be on the individual's level. Some people, good old missionary once a week is what they need. Some people 3-4 times a day, and let's get 3 or 4 types of positions and a couple of orgasms is what they need. There's a whole spectrum, but when you identify or diagnose as hyper, when I hear that, I hear addiction. I hear something with a lack of control. I hear something that is unhealthy and bringing harm in some way, shape, or form, whether it's to a relationship, you're wanting it too much, whether it's to your health and personal safety, you're putting yourself in situations that aren't good for you, you're damaging yourself financially, resources, whatever the case may be. And, extreme cases, especially with the pandemic amongst men, really, dysfunction, plenty of things from you can't see a girl walk down the street in tight pants without running to a bathroom to handle yourself, to being addicted and only aroused by the porn, the fake stuff, or escorts, whatever the case may be. That's my take and experience inside of relationships and dating, that when you bring in hypersexuality, just even it's the whole hyper about the conversation. Being explorative in your sexuality, being confident in your sexuality, communicating with your partner in sexuality. There's making love, there's fucking, there's having sex, there's doing whatever it is that you do. If it's something of concern, really just that hyper element, you really want to get to the bottom of what's actually there. There's a deeper conversation. The young you is looking for something, whether a young hurting, a violation, a mismapped model. This is how I get love. Am I lovable? Am I worth it? All those things. There's a deeper conversation. It's not just a conversation of sex. Highly sexed individuals are highly successful. And I mean, in context of life, like if you think as an organism, only the strong survive, you gotta be having some sex to procreate, to expand, to keep sticking around. So there's nothing wrong with sex. It's just so taboo because how do you address it for everybody when you're gonna have a lack of balance? Hope that answers the question.
I thought, well, I don't know if that answered the question for Charles, but I enjoyed it greatly hearing that question answered. DuWayne, Coach DuWayne, do you have any questions for us to have a moment of some collective sharing? I was going to get Leah to the Sun Star to put us in some breakout rooms, just automatically. Let's maybe put 3 people in a room and let us just share some exploratory questions about this conversation, and then we'll have you move in each room spend about a minute or 2 in each room. Anything that we can meditate on in a collective sharing breakout session.
I would definitely be up for that. What I always invite inside of any of my work, get on the court, right? Not looking out there, what's wrong over there, or somebody needs to do this, men need to do that, women need to do that. Get into your life. Look at your relationship. Look at your partnership with business partners. Look at your parenting style with your co-parent, with your kids, the interaction of masculine and feminine in any of the conversations that we've had, and really start to bring up, and if you want to get into it, like authentically share it, let it be out there, let others hear it, and actually speak yourself through it. Whatever those challenges are, now is the time. This is a safe space. This is a clearing. This is a place to explore. And you've got, listening on myself, Addam, and the community to really help you work through those things and get different input and energy. So just authentically share whatever you're troubled with the discovery, inquiry, making nothing wrong, not a complaint. What can I find newly, or what have I discovered and heard from myself newly in this conversation tonight?
Okay. All right. Well, Leah, if you can, go ahead and break us out in rooms about 2 to 3 rooms, and let us spend the next 10 minutes just conversing. What do we hear for us in this conversation? What's challenging us? What's there for us? What's inspiring us?